if you're doing 50 billion in trades a year, you had to put up this extra collateral to be able to do derivatives market, which means your swaps, your options, your all these weird little securities gimmicks and things that these funds will do. What's incredible is that 50 billion is still above what a family fund like Archegos would have had to undertake to follow this. So like they would have possibly made it under the radar, and they're just one
Oh yeah,
family fund.
exactly. That's one of the things. Like when I first started getting into this, people don't even understand how big these family offices are
Mm-hmm.
and how under the radar these guys are flying and how much they can control. And it's like these guys have nobody watching them, and it's always people that have made these family offices. It's always people that had so many violations in the stock market.
Yeah,
They're like either to get out of this and stop getting regulated, which is exactly what they do, or they're going to end up getting shut down.
yeah, yeah. And there's 7,000 family offices, something like that.
Yeah, and just to show you how big family offices are, hedge funds control 3.6 trillion.
Yeah.
Family offices control 7.4 trillion. So basically
Whew.
double. So
Yeah,
it's a big deal.
yeah, and these folks in these family offices, like Ryan Cohen Adventures is a family office. Uh, uh, you know, Bill Gates invests
The
through
Mets
his family
owner with the
office.
Cohen,
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah,
And we all know how corrupt that guy is. So
yeah,
who knows what he's doing? He just opened another one up in UK, I believe.
yeah. So pretty much anyone who probably has 50 million or more in the bank has probably set up a family office. Uh,
Yeah,
some of those
it's always
folks just kind of hand it over to a hedge fund and let them deal with it. But for the most part, these family offices can do lots of trades. It allows them to have all sorts of tax breaks, and they can get incredible amounts of margin, just insane amounts of margin to make plays. Because they're,
not only that,
yeah,
one what's really crazy about family offices too is workers that work for them. If like the family office wants to, they can file exemptions for workers,
yeah,
and then they could get to be able to operate under that family office as well.
yep. So you hire a secretary, well, they can invest with your family office and get to play with the 30 to 1 margin and everything else that you can sign up with. It's absolutely crazy. You know, and this ISDA stuff, uh, what reading about it, it looks like they're able to tag collateral so it can't be used a second time, which is what it appears that Archegos was doing. Was that they're using the same 800 million at 5 different banks to get margin.
The problem, yeah, exactly. So the problem with what was going on before is, and with Archegos, is they were able to use what is called a credit support annex. And when you made that, you just showed you had collateral. You actually
Mm-hmm.
didn't deposit anything. You just showed you could afford the trade.
Yeah,
And what he was doing is he was opening up each one of these banks, but he was using the total return swaps attached to them, just like FX or
yep,
FTX. Sorry, he's using the total return swaps to show the other bank as collateral.
yeah.
So he didn't have the stock, but he was showing the total return swaps as the underlying stock. And so he kept opening that up with new banks, new banks, new banks, and they just kept on showing that he had total return swaps collateral. So then he just kept putting it up as stock, and eventually it came out because I mean you can't get when phase six started. One of the
Yeah,
things that they did is these contracts were grandfathered in, and this is why I was telling everybody just wait on these phase six. Don't
yeah,
expect anything right away. Um, 5 days before phase six happened, Citadel opened up 8 ISDA contracts, and I showed everybody.
mm,
They opened up 8 for a reason because that gives them an extra year of all the stuff grandfathered in.
yeah,
It might have been 2 years, who knows? But that's what these guys did. They went out and they extended their contracts right before this happened. Now, most of the time, contracts run on 3, 6, 9, and 12
mm-hmm.
on renewals. So on the 3 month, you started seeing, cost to borrow actually skyrocketed. A lot of
Yeah,
people said it was the FTX, but I was showing everybody, no, it's ISDA, man.
yeah,
They can't go out there and just keep on getting this collateral, keep getting these shares, finding these things. So they're not able to find them like they were able to before.
yeah.
And then when the 6 month hits, that's going to be a whole bunch more people now
That's
having to
in
renew contracts.
that's March.
Yeah, it'd be 6 months after September 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be March. So we had 5 weeks.
Yeah,
So when that happens, you're going to have to see a whole bunch of more people need to now deposit collateral on contracts they didn't have to before. And on
yeah,
top of that, people that were doing these hidden things with flex options, married puts, buy rights, they were able to hide these things and reset ratio FTDs,
Yeah.
those are now going to be seen by a third party and will come into light. And then you're going to see more of these people like, hey, 80 trillion of this hidden debt's going to become 130 trillion. And eventually you're going to have to answer the people because now the whole world's going to see it.
Yeah.
And what happens when it's 9 months, 12 months, and it's 200 trillion?
Yeah. And if you've got like $7 trillion of, hedge funds and $7 trillion of family funds, but they're all carrying $130 trillion in debt, right? based on that collateral, like, how are you going to recoup that? Especially if we're still flirting with not raising the debt ceiling, and so in bonds already having like the worst year since 1780.
Oh yeah.
Like how is the system going to rectify any of this when we realize just how stacked debt is on top of debt for every single one of these like highfalutin funds?
Exactly. And I mean, they were able to get away with this for so long because in ISDA, they were the regulators. So the regulators were just like, let me write the contract. So they were never going to be like, we're over leveraged. They just kept on going.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, look at these banks, man. They're at like 53 trillion in derivatives.
Mm-hmm.
Look how insane that is.
Yeah.
It's because they were the ones writing them and regulating them.
And
they allowed everything.
And we still have like unclosed derivatives left over from 08, 09. We can still see like, mortgage-backed securities from Lehman Brothers and Washington Mutual trading around. It's like,
oh yeah. I mean, they've been hiding this stuff back there for so long. And that's the thing, when more of these family offices come out too, you're going to start seeing more and more and more of these Archegos situations that we don't know that, they've been using these total return swaps for collateral for how long, just with these credits and foreign annexes.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all know like the liquidation, the margin call and liquidation, subsequent liquidation of Archegos is basically what's burying Credit Suisse right now. Like they are stuck with billions that they can't close, and it's just compounding. And now the Swiss central bank is like spending hundreds of billions of dollars trying to keep their banking system afloat. UBS may be tied into these problems as well. So like the two big banks in Switzerland are like bleeding, and these are the established banks that if you think of banking, you think of Switzerland. Like that's their entire economy.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's what I've been telling everybody to stop worrying about the United States so much because you're going to see it happen over there first. I literally talked about those two specific banks for about a year now.
Yeah,
it's going to happen over there, and it's going to ripple on over. Like you said, that's their entire economy. So when this starts getting exposed, dude, you're gonna see a lot of these countries get really screwed up here.
Oh yeah, I mean, so here in the United States, because we have a global currency and we've got a huge population and our money can be used anywhere in the world, we can print at a higher rate than other nations can and have it not affect inflation as high. But a little country like Switzerland with 5 million people, but they're doing banking for hundreds of thousands of people around the world in their little country. Their central bank can't print a whole bunch of Swiss francs and not worry about runaway inflation. So if they have to print their way out of this and to save their banks, they're screwed as a country.
Oh, I agree. And I mean, and this is the thing. That's why everybody sits in like, no, these guys aren't going to hold us responsible. These other countries, when these contracts, these derivatives keep coming out through phase 6. Well, another thing I'll get into the other thing here in a second. But when these keep coming out, they're going to hold us responsible because, like you just said, we're destroying their economies.
Yeah.
They're not going to just let us go and be like, just give us a little payoff. They're going to go like, fuck you. You owe us $1 trillion.
Exactly.
Fix our economy. They're not just going to let it slide.
Yeah. And we sort of made it so that they have to buy our bonds to be able to have like the collateral to make any of these trades or borrowing or anything else. And so, we're seeing what's happening in Japan right now, that Japan had $1 trillion in our bonds, and they're battling, like they had stagnation and now they've got inflation happening, and they're realizing they've got to print more money to keep money
to buy their own bonds.
Yeah, and then they're buying their own bonds.
Their own bond. It's like they're screwed, man. I don't know what they're gonna do. They're literally printing money to buy their own debt with it.
Yeah, it's a complete
insane.
It's like I go and I get my Capital One card and I use it to pay off my venture card or whatever, and I use my my American Express card to pay off my Capital One card, and then I use like